Employees of Disney, what is the craziest thing you've seen happen in the park? I was working in the kitchen at Cinderella's castle when this family of 4 came in for their dinner. About halfway through the dinner, the husband politely stands up and taps his glass for attention. He announced that his wife of 15 years has been cheating on him for over a year. The entire place stood still in shock. He motioned for his kids, paid the waitress, and left the wife crying at the table. Overnight cast member here. Please leave your cremated loved ones at home. Stop dumping them in haunted mansion. They just get vacuumed up and disposed of. A co-worker of mine at Disney World once helped escort Michael Jackson through some employee-only areas to avoid the crowd surrounding him. He got an autograph on a napkin. MJ used to sneak in wearing a disguise and go around solo. Or at least that's what the old-timers that used to work Captain EO told me. I was a Disney employee for the summer. My 2 favorite memories. 1. Coming out of a bathroom stall and washing my hands next to half-dressed Mary Poppins. 2. I was sitting with a group of guys by where Mickey and Minnie get dressed. When they came out, the guys started catcalling Minnie. The guy that was Mickey said, in a perfect Mickey voice, "If you look at my girlfriend again, I'm gonna pop ya." I worked ODV, outdoor vending. One night I witnessed Tinkerbell get stuck on her wire above the castle during the fireworks show in '05. He almost got burned up by those fireballs during the Indiana Jones portion of the show. They eventually turned off the spotlight on her and she just hung there until they were able to reel her in back to the Matterhorn. LOL. Also I say she because the Tinkerbell that flies is played by both male and female actors. That, and seeing Alice on her cell phone cussing out her boyfriend while smoking a cig at the in-between was pretty friggin' hilarious. Used to work attractions at Anaheim Land. On the Indiana Jones adventure there are 3 48 inches height checkpoints which small guests must hit, and there's often drama here. One of the lowest points in my Disney career was having to height check a midget. I couldn't make eye contact. All he said was, "Really?" and I hung my head in shame and nodded. Another time an African American family had made it all the way down to the last checkpoint, which was in the station. The poor kid was too short, but the mom lost her mind when I said her child couldn't ride. She started screaming at the top of her lungs that this sectarian mother won't let my precious baby girl on the ride. "You are racist. You are sectarian, etc, etc. Cleared out the station. Temporarily shut down the ride. She was escorted out and banned from the park. TLDR. Height checked a midget. Didn't let a little girl ride because she was black." Former ride operator here. If you haven't been called a sectarian butthole child hater at least once a week, you aren't doing it right. I was a safari driver at the Kilimanjaro Safari attraction in Animal Kingdom. We had this elephant named Willy. Willy was an exhibitionist. I was driving a safari one day, spewing out facts about elephants when I hear a tiny voice from the back of the truck yell, "MOOOOM. He has 5 legs." I turn, and sure enough, there's Willy, standing with his 5-foot-long dong just swaying in the Florida breeze. I had to turn my mic off. I was laughing so hard. TLDR. Elephant dong. Willy just liked to show his namesake off. Former cast member in Disney World. I picked up a shift at Frontierland Foods. I was warned beforehand that in the kitchen there was a lot of animosity between the Spanish and Haitian cast members. So midway through my shift there's a lot of yelling back and forth between the two groups, and it culminates with one of the older Haitian dudes taking a cooking sheet, not one of those flimsy aluminum foil ones, the actual metal ones, and bashed him over the head with it hard as heck. Needless to say, that was the last time I picked up a shift anywhere. Not a cast member, but I witnessed a cast member do this. I was in line at Disneyland, California with a group of Japanese teenage tourists were ahead of me in line. I speak Japanese, so I could understand that they were making fun of Americans. They were mostly saying things to the effect of, "On TV they seem so cool, but all of these Americans are so fat and ugly." They were laughing and even occasionally pointing at people. I was just staying quiet, but then one of the cast members, who evidently also spoke Japanese, walked up to them and told them in perfect Japanese, "You guys should really be careful. Most Americans can speak Japanese." They all froze up and looked around at people, many of whom were giving them dirty looks. I nodded at them like I was backing him up, and they were horrified. They all left the line promptly afterward. I worked in Tomorrowland attractions at WDW and there were many stories, but one of the craziest was when I noticed a Down syndrome child waiting in the back hallway, not a normal place for guests. I figured he was waiting on his party to finish riding. I was bumped out of my position for a break 5-10 minutes later and he was still there. I got him to walk down to the unload area with me, figuring his family was probably freaking out about where he was. No one was down there waiting for him. I waited for 15 minutes and realized his family was not on the ride. After calling managers and coordinators conducting a search throughout Tomorrowland, we found his family riding Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. They just left him at space. I have never been so upset at work. There are so many others, but this one always comes to mind. As my name implies, I work at WDW as a cast member. There are a lot of crazy things I'd rather not get into, but the worst was one night during the fireworks exit. We had a bunch of 20-year-olds being dumbasses on the resort platform. They start punching each other in the arms, being the usual pricks to each other. One of them ended up missing his friend and cold clocking a 12-year-old girl. 12-year-old girl's dad had to be 6 feet 4 inches and 320 pounds. And built. I mean really built. It took 4 security guards and 2 Orange County deputies to pull the guy off the bloody pulp that remained of the kid. His friend ended up jumping into the bushes to get away from one seriously angry father. I worked in monorails too. About a year or so ago, a guest got off at Epcot station and then told the CM at unload he was going to be sick. The CM opened up the trash can so he could puke in it easier. The guest then proceeded to take off his cloths and took a massive dump in the trash can. People man. My brother-in-law worked there in the student program. 2 things he told me were the worst. 1. This couple were trying to ride Space Mountain and had a black duffel bag. He heard something come from the bag, so he asked them to open it. They refused. Security comes, forces them to open it. It was their 6-month-old baby. 2. I don't remember what attraction it was for, but he said a little boy from Make-A-Wish got to go to the front of every line. This one lady saw it and bitched so loud about how this little trash kid didn't deserve to cut in lines and a bunch of other bulls. He described the look on the boys' parents' faces as nothing but nightmarish, heartbreaking crap. He told the lady to get out of line and stop being such a bee. Explained that the kid was with Make-A-Wish. She apparently didn't care and asked for a manager. Beat a manager. She is banned from WDW. My brother-in-law almost lost his job right there due to all of the commotion that was caused. Luckily he didn't. My mother worked there in the 80s and used to run the booth where you can get your name sewn into the back of Mickey Mouse ear hats. Well, she remembers one day getting the request for an Uday and Kusei hat. Turns out Saddam's 2 sons were visiting the park and wanted a pair of ears. Not real crazy but fairly interesting. My favorite story is when a woman was dressed as Snow White in the parks, belligerently drunk and pretending to be the character by signing autographs and taking pictures with people. She was escorted out by the PD and caused a huge scene and resisted arrest. There's a photo hung up backstage in one of the parks of it. People swaddling handles of vodka like newborns and stowing them in the undercarriage of their strollers to smuggle them into Magic Kingdom. I was in the middle of a brewing international feud between a group of Brazilians and a group of Argentinians. You could tell by their tour company shirts. Standing in the middle of the crowd screaming back and forth and shoving each other. I was just merchandise at the time, so all I could do was keep innocent guests out of the way of the fight. Had another fight break out between 2 American families. A fat woman in an electric scooter ran over a child's foot. The child was shrieking bloody murder so loud that I heard it from over 50 feet away over the sound of the show going on, atmosphere sounds, and the regular din of guests. The families were screaming obscenities at each other and one father was getting in the face of the other father and started to poke his chest and used wild hand motions that basically told everyone looking on that it was about to go down. I've been shoved by a guest at a character meet and greet because I had to wait for 10 extra minutes. I told her there was no way possible for me to expedite the line and the 10-minute gap was necessary. The gap was mandatory for the level of heat we had and we were required by law to have the gap for safety reasons. So she shoved me and told me to make it happen. I've had a group of Brazilian girls try to fight me because they were being rough with the characters and I demanded they stop. These were characters that couldn't really defend themselves. A guy rubbed his nipple and asked if he could strike a deal with me so his kids could meet a character after I had closed the line. No means no, even if you're rubbing your nipples. Never really a dull moment. I wonder how rubbing your nipples could possibly help your chances of striking a deal. Grad Night 2007. I was walking out of the Space Mountain break room and saw one of my guy friends at the then Honey I Shrunk the audience look like he was about to vomit, and one of my girlfriends who was laughing hysterically. Apparently in the dark of the theater, some girl decided this would be a good time to go down on her boyfriend. Little did she know, about halfway into the show, one of the effects is this little tube that comes wiggling out of the seat to simulate mice running by your legs. This hit her throat. She bit down, and he was bleeding pretty profusely. A grad night to remember. Other crazy Space Mountain stories usually involved stupid people jumping in and out of moving cars the track. The two I remember the most. One, this guy was separated from his wife getting into the first row because he wasn't paying attention and the gates closed. Space Mountain has a very delicate time system, and generally we don't have enough time to reopen gates. I was trying to shout across the track and tell him that we would pull his wife out so they could be rejoined, but I guess the CM checking lap bars asked and she said she didn't mind and didn't want to be pulled out. So he solves this problem. Was he too scared to ride alone just a dong? I will always wonder. By jumping into the track like an butthole to chase after her car when the gates opened. My first time that I ever had to hit the emergency stop. A rather tall man was sitting in the back row and looked really uncomfortable. I asked him if he was sure he wanted to ride, as his legs were smashed against the seat in front of him, and he assured me that he did. Next thing I know, I turn around to see him climbing down one of the flights of stairs leading up into the attraction. This butthole decided he wanted to get out, and because he was so tall, the lap bar didn't go down so far as to lock him in the ride. It just boggles my mind that he decided to climb out in a pitch black area, where he has no idea where any stairways walkways are, and just take his chances that he won't fall into a track and be crushed by a ride vehicle. When I was there I worked on Main Street as part of my college program. The one thing that really caught my attention was this lady wanted to buy a huge pin set we had framed and on display for the haunted mansion but not for sale. She leaves and I move positions and then I see her just run out of the store with the frame. It was insane. The other thing I remember was during the fireworks I saw a man legit beating on this woman. I left my post and told a female cast member to call the manager to meet me backstage. Ran out into the crowd, grabbed her hand and got her backstage as fast as possible. She was shaking and terrified and the police got the guy. It was a mess. What else? During the now cancelled grad nights I saw one of the kids jump into the moat around the castle. Working grad nights is the worst. I myself went to grad night and thought I was a badass. But now as an employee I see everything in a new light. Besides everyone illegally high, drunk, or on pills, high schoolers are frisky fricks. So, I was working at one of the dance club areas. I kid you not, a couple were fricking on the dance floor, dong out and all. He was escorted out by security not too long after. TL. Dr. Frisky high school kids at grad night were kicked out. Not a cast member, but once while looking around a shop at WDW Florida, a couple of guys came in and directed everyone to the next attached shop. As I was angry at being at Disney World and generally angry at life, I didn't move, so the guy just stood nearby. I looked over to the door and Michael Jackson, complete with mask, and a kid wearing a Spider-Man mask walked in. I busied myself looking at the stuff and walked over to the next shop. I also was wandering around one day away from my family looking for a place to smoke and saw Don Knotts sitting at a table behind a velvet rope. I walked over to the rope and said, "Hi." This was around 2003 or so and I was amazed at how old he looked. He was extremely nice and asked me my name and we chatted for a bit until a reporter and cameraman walked over to interview him. Security walked over and Don Knotts told them I was his friend, Ed, and I was cool. I told him I better go and let him do his interview. Thanked him and left. Extremely sweet guy. That's so sweet. Totally how imagined Don Knotts would be. I once saw a guy getting a blowjob in the Golden Horse show at Disneyland. There's a pair of couches at the top of the stairs and the second floor is usually empty after the shows finish for the day. Well, I walked up there just to check on the place and noticed a girl had her head on a guy's lap and it was covered by a blanket. There was movement. Now I knew what was going on but I acted like I didn't and said, "Oh no, is she feeling alright? Do you need me to call first aid?" The look on his face was priceless as he muttered something about her just being tired. They left shortly after. Former cast member here. I spent many years at one of their media companies, but in college I worked at a Disney call center for the Disney catalog. Eventually they opened a new division that was the Disney World Priority Seating Call Center. So, people would be calling me in Kansas, looking to make brunch reservations at Cinderella's castle. We were told to never let people know we weren't actually on the property. If a customer asked where we were located, we were told to say, "I'm at Disney." They would even write weather updates every half hour or so on a big board overlooking the call center room. It was kind of a fun job to have because they put me through training to learn every inch of the park so that I tell people about the character breakfast at this resort or the fancy schmancy dinner at the Grand Floridian Resort, etc. Not Disney, but when I worked at Universal Studios, a guest had a heart attack while waiting to board a tram and collapsed in the tram lane. Paramedics arrived, and I watched in disbelief as my supervisor ordered them to move him out of the lane while they were actively working to stabilize him so we could resume tram service. They told him to frick off. Good for them. Once I was running the main station on a ride. On the load side of the ride, a couple and their 2 kids, one 7, 8, another 10, 11 years old, were about to get on the ride when suddenly the kid, younger of the 2, pooped his swimming trunks and it went everywhere. The mom screamed not again, and they left. We had to cycle out the ride and dump the queue, make people leave the line, on a very busy ride with a 2-hour wait. So a kid dumps in the queue, making you dump the queue. Every year in June, there's a week of gay-friendly activities in Orlando that culminates in Gay Day. A bunch of gay people go to the Magic Kingdom wearing red. One year, circa the late 90s, there was a very unfortunate coincidence. Gay Day in the park that year happened to coincide with a Marine Corps reunion in the park. The Marines were also wearing traditional Marine Corps red that day. I wasn't there, but I've heard there were many awkward moments that day. Former CM at DLR. Not in the park. I was hotels, but I saw a guy jump from the top floor of the former Wonder Tower at Disneyland Hotel. Was on the clock at the time. Ran over and it was like a giant water balloon filled with blood popped. D. Till inside the park. Happiest place on earth. Directly outside the park. Mayhem. Former WDW cast member. I swear most of my crazy stories come from working there. Things I've seen. 1. More than once. Adult drop trouser and take a dump next to a line of people and walk off laughing. 2. A mother climb a tree and swing down in the middle of another family's meet and greet with Beast. She didn't want to wait in line. 3. 3 people in wheelchairs in the same tree at another time. I have no idea. 4. A man tried to swim in Cinderella's moat during fireworks. I was guarding the ropes. I tackled him. 5. Snow White being thrown over the shoulder of a drunk man in Epcot in an attempt to carry her away. 6. A Brazilian tour group beat the crap out of Donald Duck. 7. Nights of Joy's Heck on Earth. The park is open to Christian youth groups and has Christian rock bands perform. During these nights extra staff is put on and extra security because there is fricking and drugs and theft happening around every corner. My managers were preparing us for it. They said if you see a bush rustle, kids are fricking behind it. The bathrooms have to be checked every 5 minutes. And any ride that goes dark for more than 3 seconds will have randy teenagers whipping their junk out. Those nights. Those terrifying nights. I went to Night of Joy and grad night and I saw none of this. Man, I was a clueless teenager. I just wanted to ride Space Mountain as much as possible. I worked one summer at Disneyland back when Star Tours 1.0 was still the newest and coolest thing. People were really confused by it. After waiting a long 2 hours in line, one woman walked right through the Star Speeder, not realizing that she was missing the actual ride portion. The kind people in the Star Trader alerted us. and we were able to schedule her for the next flight. One very canny bloke sidled up to me and asked out of the side of his mouth, "Where did they put the tracks for that Star Tours thing? Come on, buddy, you can tell me." Geeky me was torn between blowing his mind at the concept of a simulator or insisting that he'd actually been in hyperspace. I saw children poop in line at Fantasyland. This happened a lot. Far too often. I couldn't believe it. A respectful tip of the hat here to the custodial crew. I had to work very hard to convince a family that Disneyland was more than just Tomorrowland and that they were allowed to experience a lot of other things for their money. They'd evidently arrived by monorail and been put off by the change of theme every time they got near Tomorrowland's boundaries. Maps were used. Perhaps most awkwardly, I had to tell a highly disappointed couple that the Epcot Center was in Florida. I still kinda feel bad about the looks on their faces. I worked a ride in Animal Kingdom a long time ago. Saw a 8-10 foot long snake emerge from an area with lots of plants and bushes. It slowly works its way through a line of about 200 people, weaving its way through people's legs, strollers, bags, etc. Then it just casually slips back into another wooded area. No one noticed. Sounds like you need to stop doing acid at work. Pro tip. Go to the Buffalo Wild Wings on Wednesdays right outside downtown Disney. Some of the girls still have their hair up from costuming. During gay days at Disneyland there is a lot of fricking in the bathrooms. Had a friend working custodial and cleaning a men's restroom when two men were obvious going at it in a very full bathroom during the middle of the afternoon. Disney cast members are not allowed to go in and stop them or otherwise cause a scene, so he had to wait till they were done. In walks a man with his son, who is very mad that he can't use that stall, screaming, "My son needs to go poopy." On a grad night on Pirates of the Caribbean, a girl in the back row was seen on the security cams giving her boyfriend a blowjob. As soon as he blew his load, she leaned over to spit it out when the overhead PA boomed, "Not in the water." She was so startled she swallowed. Some cast members that worked on the Jungle Cruise while I worked there got fired for growing cannabis amongst the foliage. Not in the water. Got me to laugh. Not an employee, but there was this man that had scissors on him. Not sure how he got past security with that. He approached a little girl from behind with the scissors drawn and cut the string of her balloon. I thought that was going to be much worse than it was. It's so strange that he obviously thought about doing that before going to the park and planned it out. Former WDW cast member here. Didn't directly happen to me and never saw it, but the rumor around was one of the Snow Whites and one of the Cinderellas got caught making out. Plus whenever you see Peter Pan smoking a Pall Mall at the tunnel entrance, it's always a unique experience. Not me, but I witnessed this happen to a fellow CM. She was ringing up a guest for an item and he looked a little upset. She did the Disney thing and asked, "How's everything been going, sir? Happiest place still the happiest?" He responded with, "No, something happened today." "What's wrong?" "What happened?" she asked. "I wanted to get my Mickey ears embroidered, but they wouldn't do it," he replied. She inquiries, "What did you want embroidered on it?" "I wanted it to say, God hates F, but those pricks said it was against policy," he said bitterly. She wasn't so nice to him after that. Man, it must suck to be the saddest butthole at the happiest place on earth. I worked at Disneyland for a few months in 2006. I had an evening shift at the It's a Small World store. During the fireworks, we had to stay in the store with the metal screens pulled down. It was pitch dark and we had a table of Tickle Me Elmos. Every time a firework went off, the store would shake and the Tickle Me Elmos would laugh and fall off the table into a sort of laughing, writhing Elmo orgy. Also, public nudity in downtown Disney. A woman was walking next to her husband, boyfriend, brother, and her boobs were just hanging out of her tank top. No bra. The security had to ask her to cover up, but it was a white tank top. Not Disney, but probably my only chance to tell this story on here. I worked operations on the Terminator show at Universal Studios. One day I saw this older Indian couple visit the show at least 3 times. They were easy to spot as they were wearing the traditional Hindu garb. Well, anyways, the next day I spot the same couple exiting the show, except this time they were accompanied by a younger man I assumed to be their son. Their son stopped and asked me, "Is there anything else to do here or is this the only attraction in the park?" I was astounded. What the heck did that old couple do all day? TLDR. Old couple thinks the only attraction at Universal Studios is the Terminator show for 2 days. I think this is my favorite. I'm not a Disney employee and the story isn't that crazy, so I really have no business commenting. But those guys have eyes like hawks. I had a couple mini air horns in my bag and they told me I couldn't bring them in. I said I was going to take them back to my car. I walked a quarter mile away and tucked them in my socks. As I walked back in, a guy flipped open his Disney badge, no joke, and told me I needed to give him the air horns. I wasn't even mad. That was amazing. Screener at Disneyland here. If we see something you have that's forbidden, we know you will just re-hide it. We have people in front of us and behind us that are always watching and we can call them to follow you once we know you have something. It's actually really fun to bust people lying like that. Some people flip their crap. I worked at the safari at Animal Kingdom for a while and had a few non-guest related crazy things happen. 1. In February 2008, a truck caught on fire, flashing flames between the cab and the guest section of the truck. While not driving at the time, I helped dump just about all of Africa and joined a group of probably 35-40 safari drivers repeating the same BS over and over to guests. 2. Later in my CP program, I was driving through one of the elephant sections and saw an alligator hanging out in the water. No clue how it got there. 3. Guest related 1. I was on my rare parade duty, which is quite stressful. The logistics of Animal Kingdom's parade are pretty crappy. Once the parade gets going, you're pretty much stuck where you are. One guy decides he really needs to get to the other side of the street and is about to run out in front of a very heavy float that wouldn't be able to stop. Got to him just in time. Kinda half tackled him until I could explain how he almost died. The Floridian government estimates there to be at least 1 alligator per body of water. The craziest thing that ever happened to me personally is the time when I had to be out at Fast Pass distribution. I was standing out there telling everyone that we are out of Fast Passes when this really large overweight 8-year-old Asian kid rides up to me on a rascal scooter. He demands passes and when I tell him we are out, he demands to ride the ride. I tell him he can wait in line, 120 minutes wait, and he gets really upset and guns his scooter into my leg then rides away. I was so shocked and amused I did not call security on him. Other than that, I have really enjoyed my time working at Disney. TLDR. The Asian embodiment of Cartman ran intentionally into my leg with a rascal scooter when I could not give him fast passes. Never worked there, but one day when I was in line for a ride, I think it was Space Mountain, this little girl in front of me was complaining she had to go to the bathroom. They were front of the line so her parents didn't want to leave the line. They argue and eventually the girl squats down and shoots on the ground. She then picks up her turd and holds it up to her mom's face. If that isn't enough, her mom then proceeded to puke all over the ground. The little girl looked like we was about 8. TLDR. Little girl's poops on ground, picks it up and her mom pukes. The aristocrats. Former Disney employee checking in. I'm a little late but here it goes. Back in the day, I used to work Space Mountain in Magic Kingdom. You would have your typical stuff to deal with. Vomit, food, shoes falling off, etc. One day, we put a group of kids, one of which was admittedly too small to be on the ride, but we let him on because his bigger sister said she'd hold on to him, in their seats, let them go, get back to chatting. When they finally come back, 2 of them are missing, the boy and his sister. So, naturally, we just completely lose our crap. We all let a kid too small get on the ride. We could lose our freaking jobs for that. We could go to prison for that. We shut down the ride, tell everyone someone vomited all over the seats, and go looking for this kid and his sister. We literally had to climb around Space Mountain looking for these 2, using the carts as something to hold on to. A huge pain in the butt. By the way, when we finally see them, it's bad. The boy is face down on the tracks, dead as far as we could tell, and his sister is leaning on a pole connecting to the tracks, looking completely shot and dejected. Me and 2 other employees literally just broke down and started crying for a solid 15 seconds or so before the girl bursts out laughing and her apparently not dead little brother follows suit. One of the most unbelievable experiences of my life. Worst part was we couldn't really tell anyone about it because we let a kid on that was too short. So they basically just fricked around, climbed around on a roller coaster and got away with it. So incredibly dangerous. We were so lucky. To this day, none of us knows how those kids got off the coaster. I mean, clearly something malfunctioned. They shouldn't have been able to get out in the first place. But somehow those suckers managed to do it without killing themselves. Mind-blowing and utterly horrifying. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.